I've got a new baseline. I know we're not even to the 2020 election yet.
But 2024 has started.
It has, yes.
There's no doubt it has started.
It has, yes. And I've got a new baseline. All right? You have to be better than Brian Kemp, or the answer is no. And it doesn't matter if we were friends. I'm like Nick Nolte in 48 Hours. We ain't partners, we ain't brothers, and we ain't friends. All right? I thought I was good friends with Mike Huckabee too, but I didn't think he was the best candidate last time, so I didn't support him. All right? This is strictly business for me. And the business is, who's going to help me keep my way of life? That's the deal. That's the transaction I'm looking for. All right? And so I'm going to explain to our audience here why Brian Kemp is the new baseline for me. He's the ante you got to pay to even belly up to the table if you want my support. You got to be able to at least reach this threshold. Let's take a look at Georgia, shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So first, some context. Georgia is more densely populated than Texas. It's also more densely populated than 3 of the primary virus hotspots: Washington, Louisiana, and Michigan. 16 days ago, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp became the national poster child for reopening, mainly out of harsh criticism. He was trashed as a death merchant by Democrat media. He was undermined as reckless by President Trump on consecutive days. Well, the data is now in after a full 14-day viral incubation period as Brian Kemp, the Grim Reaper. Saturday, Georgia had its fewest hospitalizations since April 8th and its lowest need for ventilators since the pandemic began. It still has almost 2,000 of them available, just collecting moths. Now, recall the original rationale for the shutdowns was to save the healthcare system from being overrun. The Bill Gates IHME model that Fauci and Birx have enslaved this country to predicted on April 27th that Georgia shouldn't reopen until June 28th. It originally predicted back in March that Georgia was going to need 8,196 hospital beds on April 23rd. That's the day before Governor Kemp opened. The actual number of those hospitalized on that date was 4,154, and more than half of those were just in Fulton County. That's Atlanta. Georgia has 159 counties. The IHME model also originally predicted that April 21st would be Georgia's peak death day, with 137 deaths from coronavirus on that day. 24 people actually ended up dying of COVID-19 that day instead. 50 people die of heart disease per day in Georgia every year, according to CDC. And again, lest anyone continue using this as an excuse, the IHME model was factoring ideal social distancing achieved by May 31st into its original modeling. Kemp didn't even announce a shelter in place in Georgia until April 2nd, after IHME's original model was published. This virus, in my opinion, is the defining political moment of this era. It's bigger than even 9/11. It has forced everyone to show their true colors and true motivations. For better or for worse, we now know where everyone really stands, or doesn't. I don't know Brian Kemp. Here's what I do know. He and a few other governors had the stones to call BS on maybe the worst management decision ever. And he did it with even the president of his own party throwing him under the bus. From the White House, feeding the frenzy. When looking for future prospects to represent us, I'm going to be looking first at who did what and when with this calamitous and moronic shutdown. Who needed prodding? Whose instincts told them to be skeptical? Who panicked and who didn't? Who was timid? Who was prudently bold? Because if you didn't stand up here, you can't be counted on to defend my way of life with the next crisis conjured up by the spirit of the age. I have no idea if Brian Kemp plans on running for president in 2024, but if he does, when it comes to my native First of the Nation caucus state, I'm definitely going to take the time to get to know him. He's the baseline. I didn't have to send him any calls, any texts. I don't even know the guy. I've never met him. Don't know anything. All I know is he and his team have been on the vanguard of treating this with prudence instead of panic.